is it impossible for him not to live up to hype? I mean, live up to the hype? Because I think, or impossible for him to live up to the hype, because I feel like the machine is so large and so overwhelming. Like, if you compare it to LeBron in 2002, when he was in high school, you only saw a couple of his games, and a lot of it was urban legend, the SI story, all of that type of stuff. Now you have social media. He's playing at Duke. Like, you see so much of him, and you're extrapolating. You're just saying, okay, when he gets to the league, he's going to be a combination of LeBron and Sean Kemp and all these other things. And you're like, wait a minute, let's slow this down for a second. He is a man amongst the boys, but he's amongst boys. When he goes to the league, he's going to be a young man amongst grown men, and I do think it's going to take an adjustment period for him. Is he a franchise changer? Yes. But, Chris, I think I heard someone, I think it might have been Scottie Pippen, that said he's the greatest prospect since Michael Jordan. That's a lot of pressure to put on a 19-year-old with some of the great players that have come into the league in the past 30 years or so.
Yeah, Scotty said he said some crazy things lately, that being one of them. Look, I don't think he's more of a prospect or as much of a prospect as LeBron. Mm-hmm. I mean, and obviously because of technology, he's gotten more hype. But LeBron obviously was hype. One of the great things about LeBron is he lived up to it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's hard to do. Agreed. So many guys don't live up to hype. And so many of the guys that have become all-time greats, like Kobe, for instance, he was hyped, but not to this degree or not to LeBron's degree. So that is a challenge. But I do think he'll live up to the hype and be a great player in the NBA, be a superstar. One, obviously, he's explosive. And in the NBA now more than ever, because the floor is so spread, it's easier to get to the rim, I think, than it's ever been.
Correct.
And so with his, even though he's short, what, 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", with his explosiveness and his size, his body, he can finish, I think, over much bigger players.
Well, he's going to be going against guys where he's more developed now, and he's going to physically mature over the next couple of years. So I don't anticipate it being like a tough transition. Right. It's just going to be a transition. But I do think he's a franchise changer. I think if you draft him, he's going to change your life.
No question about it. All right, let's first get to the Scottie Pippen thing. It's one of the more uneducated comments that he's made. Okay, first, Michael Jordan wasn't
one of them.
Well, in terms of prospects, like, look, I think Jordan's the greatest player I've ever seen. Okay, so I start at that point. It should be pointed out that Michael Jordan was not the #1 or even #2 draft pick in his draft class.
And he wasn't a huge prospect.
I understand. So right. So that's in terms of trying to contextualize. That's why I think Scottie Pippen's a smart guy. I think he wants to give Jordan a ton of love. Find a way to mention Michael Jordan in every sentence possible.
Said that LeBron was better.
Right. So
he's been making up for that for this entire decade.
Over.
But let me just. I came out in '95, and it was an unbelievable high school class. And it was Paul Pierce, he was my roommate at ABCD, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Chauncey Billups, and Sharif Abdul-Rahim, and Vince Carter, and Stephon Marbury. And I never forget, I played in what was now the Jordan brand class. It used to be the Magic's Round Ball Classic in Detroit, Michigan. Yep. Right? And the week of practice, it was good, and there was some guys one guy was the best player one day, one guy was the best player the next day, and KG wasn't there. And then the day of the game, or night before the game, KG showed up because he took the SAT on a Saturday trying to play in college. And then he showed up the day of the game. And I'm telling you, from the moment they threw that ball up, there wasn't any question who the best player in high school basketball was that year was Kevin Garnett. And that's what... And this guy's a little bit like that. Remember, they both grew up in South Carolina. That's where KG played his last year in Chicago. So the idea, we've seen guys like this before, whether it's LeBron, whether it's Kevin Garnett, whether it's Kobe Bryant. There was a ton of hype around Kobe Bryant. We've seen. What's impressive about Zion to me is on a couple levels. First, the fact that they're not simply giving him the ball and telling him to go win a game. It's really R.J. Barrett dominates the basketball. Right. And he's able to sacrifice his ego. And he also plays both ends. He's getting better. He's played his best in his biggest games. The St. John's game was a big game at the time, 29. Remember when they played Syracuse, they were down 2 starters, right? They lost at home to Syracuse. They're down 2 starters against the zone, which should be his kryptonite. He had 35 and 10. I mean, even in the comeback against Louisville last week, he had 27 and 12. he had 4 fouls for almost 3/4 of the second half, and he still dominated that game. And that's not even talking about his defense and his shot blocking. In terms of what he'll be in the NBA, I think he'll be great as long as you understand who he is and what he's about. He's not LeBron. He's not James Harden. He's not Giannis. Okay, he's got a little Barkley to him. He's got a little Blake Griffin to him. And he's got a little Draymond Green to him in that he's a small ball 5 and a big ball 4. Now, he can step out. He can handle the ball. He's a little bit better shooter than he was last year, but he needs to improve that part of his game. But he can score in the post. He's an absolute man physically. He's actually going to have to lose weight, not gain weight, to play against NBA men because of the pounding on his hips. But as long as you understand that he's not a point forward, he's a power forward center who can handle the basketball and face up a little bit.
Does he have vision? Can he pat?
He can. He's not Draymond. He's not Draymond. But also remember, when Draymond was in college, Draymond wasn't Draymond as a passer.
But you could see Draymond had that. I thought he had the gene.
He did. But like if you put the athleticism of a Barkley, he's only really, this guy's only 6'5.5", 6'6". I think he measured out 6'5 3/4 in bare feet. That's like 6'6 and a half, which 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you're like, man, too small, got to be a 3.
Right.
He's not a 3. He's a 4-5, and a really good one at that. As long as you understand that, he will live up to the hype, and he's played at his best in the biggest of games so far for Duke.
Well, you got to think about it. He's going to be the top pick or second, whatever. Probably 1 or 2. So that means he's going to go to either maybe New York or Cleveland or Chicago or Phoenix, and all they have is room in young players, basically, to throw off the ball and say, figure it out. I'm not sure if he needs that type of structure. It's going to come down to what situation he's placed in because he's such a unique player without a given position in today's game. I think the passing part is going to open up because in college the floor is so compressed. Yeah. And coaches control so much of the game itself, it doesn't lend to a lot of creativity. When the NBA, it's spread out. You can't touch anybody. The game is quicker. It's more possessions. The only thing that's going to hinder him is his lack of being able to get up a quick shot. But other than that, I think he's going to be fine. I don't know if he's going to affect winning early on, but I do think he's going to be a productive player from the moment he steps on the floor.
And you know, like when you're young, nobody's going to be looking at his wins and losses unless he just comes in and makes a team win. You know, there's that honeymoon period, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, where it's like you want to establish Kyrie Irving. As long as you establish yourself individually as a superstar, that's what they're looking at those first 4 years.
I disagree because they expected LeBron to win from day one.
And
he didn't make the playoffs the first 2 years.
But
nobody held it against him.
They didn't hold it against him, but they expected him to.
No, I don't think so. Carmelo actually turned Denver into a winner and made the playoffs.
You think if
Larry Bird took the Celtics from like 20 wins to 60 wins, or 59 wins, whatever, but people forget that.
And people were coming in earlier or later. Bird was a man when he came in.
Bird redshirted when he transferred.
And they also had some older but still Hall of Famers on that team. Tiny Archibald.
I think it depends on what team. Like if he comes to the Knicks and they got Kyrie or Kemba and they got one of the bigs that they want to get, I do think they'll win a bunch. Like, look, I like how he'll play early on in his career because he doesn't have to change how he's playing at Duke. Like, he's a blend player now.
He doesn't need to dominate the ball, which is great.
No, because all these other guys, they've been dribbling around cones for years, right? Yep. So they're just used to coming down. R.J. Barrett, dominating the ball, high usage rating, creating shots for others or for themselves. That's not how he plays. I think the most refreshing part about it is how hard he plays on defense. And, look, the big thing, I know that fans have been trained to think, well, the defense doesn't matter. I'm telling you, if you have a power forward who can guard centers and can switch onto ball screens and can move laterally like he can, it's an invaluable weapon. Don't believe me, Draymond Green, who couldn't score 10 points if you locked him in the gym all by himself, might get a max contract this year. Why? Because he can guard the 5, he can guard the 1, and he can make life hell for whoever he plays defense on. It's that important in basketball, and this guy's a much better offensive player with maybe a limitless ceiling.
To what you said quickly, he's got the tangibles, obviously, and the intangibles. That's what you like about him.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.